Alright, so moving to the interior. When this thing was painted, I did not paint the door jambs. This is not meant to be a show vehicle of any sort. So you do have overspray around some of these edges. Is what it is. That's just there, so you know, if you're looking at it from the outside, you don't see the white from the outside unless you open up the door. And there's a cab, driver's door. All the windows roll up just fine. They roll up, roll down. Could use a little cleaning, a little more cleaning on the interior. I kind of have run out of time with this thing here lately, but this is what you got. 2 seats, a little center console there. I just repainted it. You have a selector there for 2 high, 4 low. Park and brake works great. The transfer case on this thing works great as well. Aaron, there's nothing that doesn't work on this. The shifter here, 3-speed shifter, is right now sitting on reverse. And then I rhino linered the floor. There was, to be honest, a hole in the floor. There was a nice rust spot. Someone had, when I bought this thing, they patched it with a 1/8 thick of some hexagonal shaped piece of metal, and sheet metal screws to hold it down in place. It was pretty awful looking. So I did go ahead and remove that, sanded everything down, got rid of the rust. Went ahead and pretty much filled everything with fiberglass, the mesh, kitty hair over top the mesh, and then sand that down some more, rhino lined it. So not a perfect job. I mean, it's fairly clean though for what it is. And then there's a little grommet here on each side on the cab. Excuse me, I almost hit my head there. And basically with those, if you need to ever hose this thing out, it gets filthy inside here, you just pop out those little grommets. They're drain hole plugs, essentially is what they are. And you can just hose the whole thing out, let it drain out. And that's all there is to that. And give you another better shot back here. You got little headrests. And this model is rare for several reasons, but another reason here, it's got this raised roof. Not a lot of these have the raised roof, and that gives you a lot more headway. I'm only, maybe like 5'10" or so, and not tall, but by any means, I do have plenty more headroom in here. So if you're 6'5" or anything like that, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about any kind of headroom issues. And moving here, I went ahead and put a cover over this. You can see there was a little spot that someone sliced out of the steering wheel for whatever reason. Don't know, don't care. I covered it up with this gray steering wheel cover here. Fits great. The original steering wheel is kind of skinny, so now you have this. Horn works. Everything works. Here's a horn. Got that working. Then moving on over here. Apologize with the name screaming. I got to tighten up the wiring here, so please excuse that. That was the last little bit of the project here. I needed to do this thing, and I was waiting for a ground bar to come in. So now I'll go ahead. I got the ground bar in the day. Gonna go ahead and properly tighten all the wiring, tape it all together where I need to, and just make sure it's nice and organized like everything else I've done. But here, there is no 8-track player from this thing from the factory. However, they did have the port there for the cigarette lighter. It just wasn't in there. There wasn't a cigarette lighter, so I went ahead and bought one and cut the hole there and installed that. It works. It's wired up. Everything here, by the way, all the lighting, all the electrical has its own fuse, so you don't have to worry about, you know, anything getting shorted out or anything like that. And heat. This thing has heat. It works great. 3 different modes, and you can pull it from, you know, recirculating or pull it from outside. You can do defrost on this. It can cool if it's, you know, not so hot outside. Of course, it'll bring some air in, and it does a decent job of that. But it does not have air conditioning, so please don't be confused by that. But moving up here, a couple things I installed. The ignition switch was already here. This is where it's supposed to be at from the factory, but this is a plate here with some label of some sort that I kind of honestly forget about what it was. But regardless, I think it may have something to do with the 4-wheel drive. I don't recall. But I added a not multimeter, but a voltmeter here. When I got this thing, the alternator was bad, and went ahead and got the alternator rebuilt. Works great now. I'll show you, you know, here later on. I'll show it running. I'll show it with the vehicle at idle, and this way I can keep tracking if the belt was slipping or anything like that, or if the alternator went bad again, God forbid, which I don't think it would. I'd be able to at least watch the voltage, make sure I'm not going to put myself in danger where I go ahead and shut this thing off somewhere where I'm far away from getting power. And then right here, one of my favorite parts, just to the right of the voltmeter, I had a USB socket. So you have a standard 1 amp charge and a 2.1 amp charge, and I'll tell you the 2.1 amp charge, I have a pretty beefy smartphone, and it charges up pretty quickly. There's no problem with that there. So plug that back up. That's kind of there as it's like a marine type socket there, so at least that way if you need to hose this thing down, you can literally hose down the whole entire inside of this thing and not really worry about anything getting wet and getting damaged. And also, I guess I forgot to tell you here, I'll get to my favorite part last, or my favorite parts last, but the dump bed control is right here, just this little cover over it, and then you've got your up and your down. So that'll control both the dump bed and the scissor lift. It just depends on where you have this lever right here. Right now it's in the lift position, so you'll get the scissor lift out of it. And if you were to have moved over here to the right, you'll get the dump bed feature. Move it right back over there. And then, by the way, this is right here, that little circular cover. You unscrew that, that's where you plug in the wired remote for controlling the bed, controlling the hydraulics for it. And moving back over here, the stop button is if you want to stop control of the hydraulic bed with both the wire and, well, the wire remote and this feature right here on the switch on the dash. This will stop both of them from responding. That's kind of good so you don't put it down in the wrong scenario or anything like that. Labels are kind of worn on this, but this is your headlight control off. This will turn on your parking lights, and which parking lights are definitely on right now. And then this will turn on the factory headlights. And then, of course, you have your turn signal here, which if I have my key on, I'd have the turn signal mode. And then moving on over here, this is your windshield washer control. Has 2 speeds, and it does squirt. I've got fluid in it right now, and it squirts just fine. Probably could use some new wipers. Maybe I just need to clean these up. These wipers have been on here for almost a year, so I haven't really used this thing at all. Just been kind of working on it, but I guess with the weather, I don't know if they're just brittle or what. But now moving over here, let me hop in. By the way, just so you can see the pedals. Again, please ignore the wiring here. I'm going to clean that up. But you have your clutch pedal to the left of the steering, brake pedal to the right, and then obviously your gas pedal here. So right here, this was a custom pod I kind of made here. This was originally just more of an ashtray. It was a flat panel, and I got this 5-position switch pod. I think it was designed for a Jeep JK or something like that. So I cut the pod part away from the plastic that would mount it up to the Jeep, and then molded it into this. And it worked out really well. You can kind of see what you got here, and it's at a perfect angle when you're sitting in the car, or in the truck here, if you will. So all this works with the ignition key, which I got to bury out of my pocket. So none of this will turn on whatsoever with the key in the off position. The parking lights will, and the headlights will, the factory headlights, but none of the additional features here will. So just to kind of demonstrate, it's going to be probably tough to see the lighting on this since it's so bright out right now. But here we are, we have the ignition accessory position. I don't know if you can read that, but 12.4 volts. I have operated the dump bed a couple times, take some pictures and whatnot, so it drains battery just a little bit, not much at all. But here we are, you can see the green lighting. Everything's green like the factory dash colors, because everything lighting up here is green, so I decided to just keep the green theme. So what I have here for off-road lights, this is going to be for your front mount lower LEDs that I showed you originally up front there, the outer ones. The LED light bar, pretty obvious, it's the one facing forward, that's up on top of the rack. And by the way, that was a custom rack also done by Joseph that holds the all the rear lights that are facing up high, the front LED bar, the side lights, all that was a custom bracket. So now moving on to the rear lights, these are the ones I was telling you that are not part of the reverse light circuit, but you can just turn these on manually if you wanted to. And then obviously your side lights, the ones I showed you up on the outside side of the vehicle. Now you can run all these lights all at one time. They're all LED. They don't have a huge power draw. You're not going to see your voltage go down running all these at the same time as much lighting. You'll be surprised. I'll get some video and pictures of this thing at nighttime. As bright as this stuff really is, and it's really, really, really bright. There's not a lot of draw. So that's pretty much the scenario here with the switches. Now, one thing that does make a difference, and by the way, this is also an LED. There's no longer any incandescent bulbs except for maybe back here in the dash. I'm sure they're using plenty of incandescents, I don't know, 4 or 5 or so. But very little draw on those since it's low voltage or low wattage. This red switch right down here, it's not nitrous. This is a winch safety switch, so you have to have the ignition, at least in the accessory position. Preferably you want to have the engine running to control the winch, just because it does use a little more power. But this is in the off position right now. Until you put this in the on position, which now you see the red light, this won't activate. This switch is useless. So I'll show you down here. We'll kick this off. No more light here on the winch. You get nothing. But then you go ahead and turn this on. Winch control. You got the lights on it. You can adjust this however you need. And then I'll kick it back off.